The scariest level of discipline is not loud, it is not dramatic. It does not post progress pictures or wait for approval. It works in the dark, in silence, with a kind of calm that makes people uncomfortable. Because when someone reaches this level, they are no longer fighting the world, they are fighting themselves. This discipline does not wake up early because it's trendy. It wakes up early because it refuses to let the day control it. It doesn't negotiate with the pillow, it doesn't bargain with comfort. It rises because it knows the cost of staying the same is far more painful than the effort required to change. It is the discipline that keeps going long after motivation has died. Motivation is emotional, discipline is spiritual. Motivation rises and falls like the weather, but discipline stands solid like a mountain, unmoved by how you feel, what happened today, or who disappointed you. When someone reaches this level, they become dangerous not to the world, but to their old self. This is the discipline that rejects excuses before the mind can even form them. It doesn't care if you're tired, stressed, or unsure. It knows that every excuse is a small betrayal of the person you want to become. And once you realize that, excuses lose all power. The scariest discipline shows up even when nobody will ever thank you for it. It's the student studying when the world is sleeping, the athlete training when the stadium is empty, the creator building when nobody is watching, the business owner grinding when no money is coming in. It is built on patience, not praise, and that is why it wins. This discipline understands sacrifice. It knows that comfort is the enemy and that growth demands a price. It refuses distractions, cuts off temptations, and walks away from anything that threatens its purpose. Not because it's easy, but because the mission matters more. At this level, discipline becomes identity. It is no longer something you do, it becomes who you are. You don't force yourself to work. You feel uncomfortable when you don't. You don't chase results, results chase you. You don't worry about being the best. You worry about not giving your best. And the scariest part, this discipline is not inherited. It is built one painful decision at a time. When you reach this level of discipline, people will call you obsessed. They will say you've changed. They will question your priorities. They will not understand the fire that drives you, and that's fine because discipline wasn't made for them. It was made for you. Remember this: the world bows to the person who refuses to bow to their excuses. And once you unlock this level of discipline, your life will never be the same. The most powerful form of discipline is the kind that does not depend on motivation, inspiration, or temporary excitement. Motivation comes and goes like weather, but this level of discipline stands firm regardless of how you feel. It is built from a deep internal decision rather than a moment of emotional energy. People who master this type of discipline do not wait for the perfect mindset or the perfect timing. They understand that action comes first, feelings come later. This discipline works because it's anchored in purpose, not emotion, and that makes it unshakable in the face of challenges. This discipline knows that if you rely on motivation, you will only work hard on the days that feel comfortable. But the path to greatness demands work on the days that feel heavy, confusing, and exhausting. The person with true discipline understands that progress happens in those moments when you continue moving despite the lack of excitement. They've learned to ignore the emotional resistance that tries to slow them down. Instead of looking for a mood boost, they focus on building momentum, because they know that action creates the energy motivation fails to provide. There is a quiet and almost frightening strength in someone who no longer requires inspiration to get things done. This is the level where discipline becomes a reflex, automatic, reliable, and consistent. They don't waste time waiting for the spark to begin. They simply start, knowing that the mind will follow the body. This kind of discipline sees comfort as a dangerous distraction and inconsistency as a silent threat. It pushes forward even when the internal voice whispers to stop. And because of that, it stays ahead while others fall behind. A person who operates with discipline instead of motivation doesn't wait for life to feel easy. They fully accept that some days will test their patience, energy, and willpower. Yet they continue anyway, not because they feel strong, but because they refuse to lose to temporary emotions. This discipline recognizes that greatness is built in moments of discomfort, not convenience, and so they train themselves to work through boredom, frustration, and doubt. Over time, this becomes a superpower that separates them from the average and lifts them into the extraordinary. When you adopt this discipline, you begin to understand the difference between feelings and decisions. Motivation is a feeling short-lived and unpredictable. Discipline is a decision firm, grounded, and independent of mood swings. The disciplined mind says, "I don't need to feel like it to do it." And the moment you embrace that idea, your entire life changes. You stop being controlled by inner resistance, and you start becoming the master of your own progress. This shift is what turns dreams into routines and goals into results. This form of discipline also teaches you to create consistency even when negativity surrounds you. You might face stress, chaos, disappointment, or pressure, but you don't let these things dictate your actions. You learn to move in silence and act with patience. You replace emotional reactions with intentional choices. You don't wait for motivation to return because deep down you know it is unreliable. Instead, you form habits powerful enough to carry you through the hardest moments. That is where true transformation begins. This discipline is built slowly through repetition and commitment. Every time you choose action over comfort, you strengthen the foundation. Every time you push yourself when you don't feel like it, you reinforce the mindset. Eventually, it becomes a part of your character, something you no longer struggle to maintain. You wake up and take action because that is who you are now. This kind of identity-based discipline is far more powerful than motivation-based effort. It becomes the engine that drives your success daily. People with this discipline become unstoppable, not because they are perfect, but because they refuse to stop. They don't fear discomfort, they expect it. They don't run from challenges, they work through them. They don't rely on external inspiration. They create their own energy through consistent action. And when everyone else takes breaks, gets distracted, or loses focus, they continue moving with steady determination. Over time, this separation grows so large that it becomes impossible to ignore. The discipline that works without motivation also protects you from the emotional chaos of life. When your actions depend on motivation, every setback can destroy your progress. But when your actions depend on discipline, nothing can stop you, not a bad day, not a bad mood, not a bad moment. You work because you have decided to work. You push because you have decided to push. You grow because you refuse to pause your growth every time life becomes inconvenient. That is why disciplined individuals rise while others stay stuck. In the end, this is the discipline that changes everything. It rewires your habits, sharpens your mindset, and strengthens your consistency. It becomes the force that guides your decisions long after motivation has faded. And once you master it, you no longer wait for conditions to be perfect or for emotions to cooperate. You act because you've made a commitment to yourself, a commitment stronger than excuses, stronger than feelings, and stronger than fear. This is the discipline that shapes champions, builds leaders, and creates a version of you that even your old self wouldn't recognize. The most powerful and transformative discipline is the one that refuses to negotiate with excuses. It is the discipline that hears the voice of doubt, laziness, fear, or discomfort, but does not obey it. Excuses always appear reasonable in the moment. They sound soft, logical, and comforting. But behind every excuse is a silent theft. It steals growth, progress, and potential. The discipline that rejects excuses recognizes this truth deeply. It understands that excuses are not harmless. They are barriers disguised as protection. And so, this discipline trains the mind to push forward even when the world and the body are whispering reasons to stop. This level of discipline begins by recognizing that the human mind is naturally wired to avoid discomfort. When faced with a task that requires energy or effort, The brain immediately looks for an escape route, something to justify delaying, reducing, or avoiding the work. But the disciplined person sees these excuses as traps. They understand that every time they allow an excuse to win, they strengthen a habit of quitting. And every time they reject an excuse, they strengthen the muscle of resilience. This discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about refusing to allow momentary weakness to control long-term destiny. A person who lives with discipline that rejects excuses operates with a different internal dialogue. When most people say I'm tired, they respond with I'll do it anyway. When others say I don't feel like it, they answer with my feelings don't control my actions. When others say maybe tomorrow, they reply with the cost of delaying is too high. This discipline does not ignore the presence of discomfort. Instead, it accepts it, embraces it, and moves forward despite it. Over time, this mindset becomes deeply ingrained, turning effort into identity. Excuses often come disguised as valid reasons. A stressful day, a small inconvenience, a minor headache, a lack of motivation, these things appear harmless. But this discipline sees the long-term pattern. It understands that the more you allow excuses, the stronger they become. The more you avoid difficult tasks, the harder they become to face tomorrow. The discipline that rejects excuses sees the danger of this cycle and cuts it off early. It does not wait for the perfect situation. It does not postpone action until conditions improve. It begins even when everything feels imperfect. This discipline teaches you that excuses are the language of your weaker self, the part of you that fears failure, discomfort, and growth. But your stronger self speaks in actions, not excuses. When you adopt this mindset, you begin to treat excuses like lies meant to pull you away from your potential. And the moment you stop believing those lies, you take full control of your progress. You realize that most excuses are simply stories created to protect comfort, not truth. And that realization becomes your greatest weapon. When discipline rejects excuses, it also eliminates the habit of blaming external factors. People who rely on excuses often say things like I didn't have time, I wasn't ready, or I didn't feel right. But the disciplined individual understands that responsibility is power. By taking ownership of their actions and choices, they gain the ability to shape their future. They stop waiting for favorable circumstances and start creating their own results. This shift from blame to ownership separates the committed from the average, the achievers from the dreamers. This discipline is forged through repeated decisions to act when acting is uncomfortable. At first, rejecting excuses feels difficult because the mind is used to choosing the easy path. But with practice, it becomes natural. Each time you choose effort instead of avoidance, you strengthen your willpower. Each time you show up when you don't feel like it, you deepen your commitment. Eventually, rejecting excuses becomes instinctive. You no longer debate whether to act, you simply act. You no longer question your ability. You prove it to yourself daily. People driven by this discipline become incredibly consistent. While others work only on good days, they work on all days. While others rely on motivation, they rely on duty. While others stop when they feel resistance, they push harder. This kind of consistency builds momentum that excuses cannot interrupt. It creates a lifestyle where progress becomes a natural outcome, not a rare accomplishment. This discipline becomes a lifestyle, not a temporary phase, and it shapes a character capable of achieving long-term success. Discipline that rejects excuses also builds trust in yourself. When you repeatedly do what you said you would do, even when it's hard, you begin to see yourself as reliable, capable, and strong. Your self-respect grows, your confidence grows, and your belief in your future grows. On the other hand, every time you give in to excuses, you weaken your trust in yourself. You begin to doubt your strength, your consistency, and your potential. This discipline protects you from self-doubt by proving through action that you are stronger than your excuses. In the end, this form of discipline becomes one of the most valuable qualities you can develop. It frees you from the limitations of fear, laziness, and uncertainty. It teaches you to separate who you are from how you feel. It empowers you to take control of your decisions and shape your life with intention. Once you master the discipline that rejects every excuse, you unlock a level of power few people ever experience. You stop being held back by discomfort or emotion. You rise above the noise of your own mind, and you become the kind of person who accomplishes not because it was easy, but because you refuse to accept anything less. The most powerful form of discipline is the one that slowly transforms into who you are, not just something you try to do. This is the discipline that stops being an effort and starts becoming a natural part of your personality. When discipline becomes identity, you no longer depend on motivation, reminders, or pressure. You operate from an internal standard that you refuse to break. Your habits align with your goals because they are a reflection of the person you now see yourself as. This transformation is gradual, but once it happens, everything in your life begins to shift. This discipline begins with repeated decisions, small, consistent choices that shape your behavior day after day. At first, it feels difficult because you are trying to force a new path while your old habits are pulling you backward. But every time you choose discipline over comfort, you push your identity a little bit further forward. You begin to see yourself differently, act differently, and expect more from yourself. These small victories start to create a new internal truth. This is who I am now. That inner shift becomes the foundation for extraordinary growth. When discipline becomes identity, your actions stop feeling like obligations and start feeling like a responsibility you owe to yourself. You no longer say, I have to do this. Instead, you say, this is what I do because this is who I am. This mindset removes hesitation, resistance, and internal debate. You don't spend energy convincing yourself to take action, because the action is already part of your nature. The struggle disappears. Decisions become automatic. The new identity guides every choice with clarity and conviction. This form of discipline also deepens your sense of self-respect. When you consistently keep promises to yourself, follow through on your goals, and push beyond your limits, you build trust in your own character. Over time, this trust becomes unbreakable. You begin to feel proud of the person you're becoming, and that pride fuels even greater discipline. On the other hand, breaking your own word weakens identity. That is why this level of discipline works so powerfully. It protects your self-image and reinforces it with daily evidence. When discipline becomes identity, you stop relying on external validation. You don't need compliments, applause, or approval. You don't need to prove anything to others. Your consistency becomes its own reward. You begin to feel uncomfortable when you are not aligned with your standards. Skipping effort no longer feels like rest, it feels wrong. Breaking routine doesn't feel like freedom, it feels like betrayal of the person you've built. This internal accountability is stronger than any external pressure, and far more reliable than bursts of motivation. This identity-based discipline does not collapse under stress or distraction. When life becomes chaotic, most people lose their structure because their discipline was built on convenience. But when discipline is who you are, chaos does not push you off track. You adapt, adjust, and continue anyway. You don't let emotional storms rewrite your values. You don't allow temporary difficulty to control long-term character. Identity-based discipline is stable, grounded, and unshakable, even when circumstances shift unexpectedly. This kind of discipline also changes the way you approach challenges. Instead of avoiding them, you meet them with confidence because you trust your ability to stay consistent. The person who has become disciplined does not fear hard work. They don't question whether they can push through discomfort. They expect themselves to push through. This inner belief creates a powerful form of mental toughness. You stop doubting your potential and start living it. You stop hoping for strength and start embodying it every single day. As discipline becomes identity, your environment and relationships begin to shift as well. You naturally attract people who respect consistency and personal growth. You drift away from those who encourage laziness, excuses, or shortcuts. You surround yourself with habits, routines, and influences that reinforce your identity. The world around you starts to match the world inside you. This alignment strengthens your path and makes progress smoother because everything is working in harmony with the person you have chosen to become. This transformation also creates long-term sustainability. Most people quit their goals because they rely on short bursts of motivation that eventually fade. But identity-based discipline does not fade. It grows stronger over time. It becomes self-reinforcing. Every day you act with discipline, your identity becomes more solid. And the more solid your identity, the easier discipline becomes. This cycle creates a lifetime of consistency, allowing you to achieve goals that once felt impossible. It is not about trying harder, it is about becoming someone who no longer needs to try. In the end, discipline that becomes identity is the most powerful way to change your life. It does not depend on mood, environment, or external push. It comes from within, silently shaping your actions until they form a new version of you, stronger, wiser, and more focused. When discipline becomes identity, success becomes a natural result of who you are. You no longer chase greatness, you live in alignment with it. And the world begins to see the person you were always capable of being, because you chose to become that person every single day.